Welcome to the Feelgood Factor podcast. Now please welcome your host, Dom Watterson.
You're listening to Feelgood Factor podcast, brought to you by Health Bunker. Before we start the podcast today, I want to tell you about several new products we've got on the Health Bunker Supplements website. First, we've got CoQ10. CoQ10 I've developed for cardiovascular and energy production. There's going to be a few cardiovascular products coming out. Some of them to reduce inflammation, some of them to break down microclots caused by the you-know-what, and also from just natural aging. Obviously, as we slow down, our bodies don't work as well as they used to do. And some people will be suffering from clotting issues, i.e. angina type things. Also, there's going to be some other products that help the vascular flexibility of the veins as well. They're coming out next month. There's 3 products, but the first one that we've got that's come out is CoQ10. Also, we've got another product, hemorrhoid support. And the hemorrhoid support, as you'll be seeing on the screen there, helps strengthen the blood vessel walls, contributes to normal vascular tone, promotes healthy blood flow, also reduces inflammation and irritation all around that area. So if you're having issues with hemorrhoids, bleeding when you go to the toilet, etc., it's quite worrying. I had it for a number of years, and I've been using this product. Some of my friends have been using it as well, simply for my own remedies as well, and I found it really helps. So hopefully it'll help other people as well. And it's a herbal product. There are no fillers. It's vegan friendly. It's got aloe vera, bilberry, butcher's broom, horse chestnut, witch hazel, and stone root. The next product is another vitamin D3 product. This one's called D3 Max. It's a 4,000 IU soft gel with olive oil. And reason to develop this, we've also got Defense as well, but that's got other nutrients in, and it's a powdered blend as well. And the other nutrients help the absorbability of D3, but you wouldn't want to be taking more than one of those capsules. These, if anybody wants to take 2 or 3 capsules a day, I take 3 of these soft gels per day. We've also got hypothyroid. Hypothyroid, not hyperthyroid. It's for the underactive thyroid. And this is another herbal product, although it has got other nutrients in as well. It's got the amino acid L-tyrosine and several other herbs in there to help underactive hypothyroid. I've actually been taking this product, and my wife takes it more than I do, since 2017. And we decided to develop our own, and this is it. We've also got female hormone product, which me and a few other people have been calling it the anti-divorce pill. And this is another herbal complex that I've had made up by our friends who are 4th generation master herbalists. So it's been very well thought out. My wife designed this all by herself, and it's got several herbs in it, and magnesium and vitamin E and vitamin B6 and a few other stuff. Yeah, it's well worth a try if you're suffering from perimenopause or going through the perimenopause or the change. It certainly helps support some of the symptoms. And there'll be more products as well coming alongside this that we're developing at the moment. These things take quite a while to get online, sadly. I'd like to get them up quicker, but even the designing of the labels take a long time as well. We've got another herbal product, Bright Eyes. This helps reduce eye strain, hay fever issues. It hydrates skin around the eyes, reduces eye inflammation, eye irritation. And these are well researched extracts as well. All of these are herbal extracts. Again, it's not multivitamin or mineral. These are all herbal extracts. And lastly, we've got ashwagandha. This is a patented product. So this podcast we're doing now is with Tobias Segal. He's from Promo Life in the US. I've actually had him on a couple of times, but I wanted to do a podcast about how to set up a home ozone equipment. And we specifically talk about how to set up home ozone. And if you're watching this on the video, I'll be playing some videos on there, just showing you some of the equipment It's a bit difficult, obviously, without doing an instructional video on how to set it up. But on PromoLife, he's got all the videos on there on his YouTube channel on how to set these products, this equipment up. And I'd advise anybody to have ozone equipment if you can at home. Just the basic stuff, an ozone generator, some of the glassware to make ozone water, and be able to do ear injections with ozone. I do them quite regular, and I've done them on my kids as well, not just on myself. Also, rectal insufflations. If you females can do vaginal insufflations. These things are very useful indeed for not just fighting off illness, but also preventing illness as well. And remember, if you're going to order to use, as listeners, we're giving 25% off all Health Bunker products. Apart from the Liposomal products, which you get 10% off, please use the discount codes in the description. Also, before the video starts, the chat me and Tobias have, I'm going to play one of PromoLife's videos. It's only 1.5 minutes long, and it just shows you the basics of setting up ozone equipment at home. So I hope you enjoy the chat. I hope it's useful for you, and I enjoy helping people bring control to their own life and their own health, and passing it on to the family as well.
Hey everybody, I'm Colton with PromoLife, and today I'll be going over the basic ozone insufflation package. This package includes everything needed to perform rectal, vaginal, sinus, and ear insufflations, create humidified ozone gas, as well as create highly concentrated ozonated water. An ozone generator is also included in this package. Let's go over the two options you have available to you. With this package, you have two options in terms of ozone generators, the O3 Elite Single and the O3 Elite Dual. These generators are quite similar except for one difference, their ozone concentration, or gamma. The O3 Elite Single reaches a maximum ozone output of 70 gamma, whereas the O3 Elite Dual can reach up to 100 gamma. This makes the O3 Elite Single the ideal generator for home use therapies such as insufflations and making ozonated water. The O3 Elite Dual can be used for the same therapies and will make ozone water a bit faster than the O3 Elite Single, but also has the ability to do ozone saunas. When trying to decide between the two, the number one reason I would say to choose the O3 Elite Dual over the O3 Elite Single would be if you're planning on using the generator for ozone saunas. With the basic ozone insufflation package, you'll have everything needed to properly perform a handful of ozone therapies in the comfort of your own home. Thanks for watching. Check out our other YouTube videos for more information, and be sure to follow us on social media. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and hit that notification bell for future videos.
Welcome to this Feelgood Factor podcast, and this is the 5th episode, I do believe. I lose track of doing that many podcasts at the moment, and I've got I suppose he's a returning guest, but it was probably the first guest actually I had on the Health Bunker podcast going back, since we've rebranded it, going back 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah,
Tobias,
that's right.
Tobias Segal. Have I pronounced your surname right?
You nailed it. It's perfect.
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, with my Yorkshire Northern accent, we pronounce things totally differently.
That's okay.
And today, I do get a lot of people asking me about what sort of things I can buy at home regards ozone, because I rabbit on about ozone constantly. Because I don't know if you probably know this already, but we've got an ozone clinic in our area. And we do ozone 10 pass therapies and stuff, but there's a lot of stuff you can do at home without needing nurses to sort of apply an IV set to your arm and things like that, isn't there?
There absolutely is. So, I mean, the home treatment is really taken off, in my opinion, because you're seeing a lot of practitioners who are providing ozone to their patients in their clinics, just like you, and they're advocating for their patients to also do a lot of ozone therapy at home because it will increase the success rate for the patient, and they're going to have a better outcome long term.
Yeah. So I suppose before we get into that side of it, can you just you PromoLife? I know about PromoLife.
Absolutely.
I was been a customer since 2008.
That goes way back. That's nice.
Yeah, way back. I had hair.
I'm starting to lose my hair. So So PromoLife is a company that specializes in ozone therapy equipment for home users, dental offices, and some clinical use as well. Our main specialty point is ease of use and really tailoring the equipment to the customer, whether they're using it at home or in an office. But we really specialize in the accessories that we offer, plus the generators. We want to make it so it's easy for everybody to get into ozone. So we have a lot of different options. We really stress education, 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 because you can't do it correctly if you don't know what to do. So we have lots of videos, we have guides, we have one-on-one supports that's available free of charge. And so our goal is to essentially make you feel successful at ozone therapy, whether it's at home or in the office. And our logic behind that is if you're having a bad experience with ozone or not successful, you're not going to tell people that you had a good time with ozone, and it's not going to move the cause forward. And we really want to make sure that everything is moved forward properly, because ozone therapy does work. It's amazing. And there's definitely, you definitely need to know that there's definitely some good information out there how to be successful with it as well.
I suppose the issue with home ozone, generally, people that come to our clinic, they've suddenly been diagnosed with something and they need it now. And so they've got a lot of information to learn very quickly. It's all right for me and you. We've been talking about this stuff for over a decade, if you like. But for people who don't know about ozone, the first thing they do when on a Google search is that it's some sort of toxic gas.
Yes.
And it is a bit off-putting for people, isn't it?
It is, unfortunately. But here's the way I look at it. So, this is our FDA. This is how they state. They clearly state ozone is a toxic gas. Now, we have to really break that down and understand what that actually means. So it's all about the dose is the medicine. Okay. I mean, if we look at water, I mean, there's a toxic threshold with water. Okay. So we're using very low concentrations of ozone gas, very small amounts and very low concentrations of ozone gas. And I think the best way to describe in the most simplistic form as far as what's happening to our body is it's essentially very similar to weightlifting. Okay. So when we weightlift, what's happening is we're working our muscles. We're creating these micro tears in our muscles. There's also micro fractures in our bones, and our body is healing and repairing itself so it's stronger moving forward. So what ozone's doing is it's putting a very, very mild form of oxidative stress on our body, and it's pushing our body to generate additional antioxidants through the liver, producing glutathione, and it's allowing our body to essentially build back stronger and more effectively. And that's a very simplistic term as far as how ozone therapy works. And there's a lot of other downstream benefits with it when it comes to antimicrobial actions, when it comes to anti-inflammatory, when it comes to immune modulation. It does a lot of other things, but that's a very, in a nutshell, approach to how essentially ozone therapy works.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but it goes from, for instance, you're not going to want to breathe, I call it raw ozone gas into your lungs, are you? That's a no-no. That's the no-no. But from an oxidant, it's got a wonderful way as ozone of becoming an antioxidant in different therapeutic modalities, if you like. For instance, IV stuff or insufflations or into water.
Yeah. So this is what the customer has. This is what people need to know. So when let's view ozone as let's call it a pro-oxidant. Okay. So think about it like this. If you are fighting off an infection, like if you have the cold or the flu or something like that, your body produces free radicals or oxidants to fight off those infections. So we all hear that term free radical. Oh, that's bad. It causes aging, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, free radicals and antioxidants both exist in the body, and you have to have a balance of each. Like if you have too many free radicals, we age too quickly. It's not good for us. We have too many antioxidants. That's a whole nother story. It's not good for us as well. There has to be a nice balanced approach, because if we look at how our body actually fights infections, it's through the process of pro-oxidants or free radicals. So if we didn't have those, we would be screwed. And so I think it's very important for people to understand that our body actually naturally produces a small amount of ozone through the white blood cells. That's our pro-oxidant. That's how it's going to fight off these infections. So as ozone enters the body, the first thing that comes to mind, well, you're putting an additional oxidant in the body. So is it is it causing it to become out of whack? Not really, because what it's doing is it's stimulating the liver. Your liver responds and it produces glutathione and other antioxidants in the body. So it balances itself out. So our cells also have natural antioxidant coatings, which protect itself from additional oxidative stress. And so when we start adding the right concentration of ozone, the right volume, remember, dose is the medicine, it allows our body to get back in sync, fights off these infections, strengthens our body, and really balances balances the antioxidants in our body.
Yeah. I mean, I can't, there's two things two treatments, if you like, ozone and high dose vitamin C IVs. They're the two things that I will, cry from the rooftops about, saving me from Lyme disease.
Well, and I mean, high dose vitamin C is also like, okay, if we look at vitamin C, taking it orally as a supplement, it's an antioxidant. Okay. But when you do high dose vitamin C, especially through an IV, it turns into a pro-oxidant in the body, just like ozone.
Yeah. And they're beautiful together as well. We do a lot of treatments where people have ozone first and then high dose vitamin C, although it was frowned upon years ago because the theory was that vitamin C got rid of ozone. But in reality, it makes it more bioavailable.
That's correct.
I'm glad you say it's correct as well, because a lot of people do argue with me that I don't want vitamin C with ozone.
Well, you can maybe justify that argument if you're taking it orally, because it does enter the body as an antioxidant. So you could make that argument, because there is some pretty good evidence out there that shows if you've had too much ozone, let's just say if your body has intake too much ozone, you can counteract a little bit of that by orally taking some vitamin C. But as we all know, high dose vitamin C through an IV enters our body as a pro-oxidant, so as an oxidant, which is very similar to ozone. And then what I would like to just briefly mention, make sure we address this down, hopefully, toward the end or in the middle of this presentation. I would love to talk about ozonated glycerin, because that's a new craze as well, and how the structure of ozonated glycerin is almost identical to vitamin C.
Let's talk about it now. Go on.
Okay, we'll do it.
Well,
okay.
It's hot. Yeah.
So, as of right now, ozonated glycerin has really started to take off, and really what we're finding with ozonated glycerin, it's very similar to essentially ozone in a bottle. So they're starting to do IVs with this. They're adding it to IVs. They're doing joint injections with ozonated glycerin. You can use it topically on your skin. You can nebulize ozonated glycerin. There's a lot of different applications for ozonated glycerin. And what's cool about it is it's, unlike ozonated water, which has a half-life or only lasts for like 20 minutes, ozonated glycerin is going to last for roughly 90 days or close to 90 days at room temperature, and even a lot longer refrigerated. So the half-life or the length of storage for ozonated glycerin is substantially longer when you compare it to ozone gas or even ozonated water. And so if we look at the structure of ozonated glycerin, what we're finding is, I think it's 6 parts carbon, 12 parts hydrogen, and 8 parts oxygen. Okay. So if we look at, or maybe it's 4 parts oxygen, I can't remember. But if we look at the structure of vitamin C, it's 6 parts carbon, 8 parts hydrogen, and then I think it's 4 parts oxygen. Let me just verify really quick. I want to make sure I get that correct. So it's 6 parts carbon. Vitamin C is 6 parts carbon, 8 parts hydrogen, and then 6 parts oxygen, where ozonated glycerin is the same, except it has 12 hydrogens. So very similar on how the structure looks and operates. But the cool thing is, what makes ozonated glycerin special is the fact that it's a half a glucose molecule. So glucose is readily absorbed by the body. It gets absorbed incredibly fast because it's a sugar. So as you intake a sugar, your body absorbs it. It gets into the bloodstream very quickly. You have essentially what's happening with ozonated glycerin. We like to call it, I think the most simplistic term is a glucose peroxide. So I think that's the best way to look at it. So as glucose is uptake by the body, you have you have a bunch of peroxides that are then, once it hits the cells, that are being released. And anytime a peroxide is starting to break down, it's releasing oxygen. So the cool theory behind ozonated glycerin is, if you have like compromised cells, or if you have cells that are, becoming cancerous, cancerous cells love to uptake sugar. And so if they uptake that sugar and then that peroxide is released, which is turning into oxygen, you're now hitting that cell with oxygen, which it does not like. And so we almost view ozonated glycerin as like a Trojan horse. And so it almost tricks the body into uptaking it. And then it releases that component once it hits those cells that are essentially favorable to oxygen. So that's a really ozonated glycerin in a nutshell.
And I'm using home ozone generators. Can you make your own ozonated glycerin?
You can, actually. So it does take time. On average, like from what I'm seeing for home users, it takes roughly 4 days of like continuous use, of continuous ozonation. So it's not something that can happen right away. The saturation point of ozonated glycerin does take a while, where like a good example is like ozonated water takes roughly 20 minutes to 10 to 15 minutes to produce. Ozonated glycerin takes, we could estimate 96 hours potentially for some systems. And, that's a lot of ozone gas that you're packing in there. And the idea is when you're intaking ozonated glycerin, it slowly releases. So that's why you're not as likely to experience like a Herxheimer reaction, because it slowly releases in the body over time. So I think it's a great alternative for people who don't have the ability to even have equipment. You can buy ozonated glycerin pre-made. You can store it in the refrigerator so it lasts longer. So you can start doing these at-home oxidative treatments, without having to buy all this expensive equipment.
Yeah. And is it similar to liposomal products then? Because
liposomal,
yeah. There's my accent again. Yeah. Because I know we've got we've got the Live On Labs vitamin C that we use, and also we make Ozone, not at home, but with a company in the UK that specialise in a non-alcohol one, and they use glycerol.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be, glycerin is a sugar. So, sugar, like, here's a good example on how it works. So if you orally take glycerin, like if you take a spoonful of glycerin, it's not going to get past your stomach. Okay. The stomach absorbs it. It goes right into the bloodstream from your stomach. So if you want to get it to other parts of the body, like a higher concentrated dose, you're going to have to consume like a time release capsule or something on those lines. So that's really, if you wanted to get the glycerin to your small intestines, which a lot of people are doing to treat like candida issues or SIBO issues, you're going to have to use some form of like time release capsule to get it there. Now, like similar to like, sorry, I'm kind of drawing a blank on that. The liposomal. There we go. That's it.
Yeah.
So if you're using liposomal, like you can also like take the glycerin, put it under your tongue, and that's going to absorb somewhat rapidly through the bloodstream, because that's called sublingual administration. I don't know exactly. I can't give you a true comparison on how it works, but I know since it is sugar, and most liposomal stuff is going to be more sunflower or soy lecithin, and that's right. Essentially they coat it so it's more fat coated.
Yeah.
So if we look at another method to get glycerin into the system deeper, so if we want to get it past the stomach, the other way to do it, rather than taking a time release capsule, is to mix the glycerin with like fat, or like with olive oil, MCT oil, and that will deliver it into the small intestine. So I think the fat is crucial for getting it to different places. I think you have there's just a host of other ways to administer it to the body.
That's what our vitamin C is made with, sunflower lecithin, and so
that's correct.
With glycerol. So that and then it's got vitamin C in there as well. I bet it's a similar process. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but because it must encapsulate the ozone in it. That it must do something. The ozonated glycerol must encapsulate the ozone to give it a longer life, mustn't it?
Well, it's more of like it's more converted to like an ozonide or a peroxide.
Right. Okay.
And so like when we test the strength of ozonated glycerin, we're actually measuring the peroxide value. Now, I think there's a few other things that are also happening with the glycerin. Like I was doing some testing the other day, and we're doing our best to compare it to like almost like high potency ozonated water. And so we're doing some tests to verify that. But that's kind of what I'm leaning toward is it's like high potency ozonated water that's very gentle to orally consume because it has a much slower breakdown in the body.
So let's start at the beginning. If someone's wanting because many people, when they ask me, and I always say, speak to Promo Life if you get hold of Tobias or one of his staff members there, and they've got starter packs there that can start you off, if you like, a generator, an ozone generator. You've got several different ones that you could buy, and you'll advise them on what their budget is, etc., etc. So while you're watching this, I'm going to be putting images up of the Promo Life generators, and so you'll need a generator, you will need all the tubing, and you will need an oxygen source. And oxygen sources can be sourced from over here. You don't have to import them from the US. There are places where we can buy the oxygen sources over here.
Yep.
Which would you say is the easiest ozone generator? They've changed so much. I've still got my original one I bought from you guys. We're in a silver case. I've still got it here somewhere. I'll try and put a picture on when we're doing this from 2008, 2009. How much have they changed? I mean, you can see that one over that shoulder there. It's probably there, just under my microphone.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So I've had that for about 7 or 8 years, I bet.
They really haven't changed a ton. I mean, other than like interface, that's the biggest change that we see is the usability or the interface. The technology really hasn't changed because really what we're doing is we're just running oxygen through through an enclosed cell, and then we're electrifying that oxygen. So that's really what we're striving for is converting some of that oxygen, that O2 into O3. So really the biggest change is the interface and maybe some of the materials that allow it to last longer, but that's really about it. Ozone generators should last for a long time, especially if you're using pure oxygen, because that's the big component is the pure oxygen creates just ozone. And, I think they say it's like 95% oxygen, 5% ozone. But like if you're starting to use like ambient oxygen that we breathe, which is 76% nitrogen, you're creating a lot of nitrogen dioxides and nitric acids as well, which are considered toxic and which can cause issues down the road. So we really want to have, if we're doing any type of therapeutic use with ozone, we do want to have a pure oxygen source. And you are right. You can get oxygen, locally pretty easily. We like to refer to it as welding oxygen. Yeah. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's literally the exact same stuff as medical oxygen. They fill the tanks with the exact same stuff. There's a whole process on how they do it, how they keep it pure, because welders have to have a high purity as well. And it's incredibly safe. I would say probably 8 out of 10 users in the United States use welding oxygen. And if we think about it, we're probably talking to hundreds of over 100,000 people who do home ozone therapy. 70 to 80,000 of those people are using welding tanks, and there's never been a single instance of negative reaction happening from welding gas. So I think it's incredibly safe.
I've got just over there a 10-litre one, a bottle of gas, or welding gas. And the only difference is from the ones that we have in the clinic. Obviously, the clinic have to be medical grade. We've got no option there. But at home, you're okay. And the guys where I get mine from say it's exactly the same. We fill them up from exactly the same tank. They're just in a different bottle.
Yes. It's and from a clinical standpoint, you do want to go with medical. It's just more of like a protection or / liability safety thing for you guys. This way, if something did occur, you can say, well, I was using medical, even though it's the exact same stuff. But yeah, it's very accessible. I think it's relatively easy to get here in the States. What I'm doing for a lot of customers now is we can actually ship filled oxygen tanks to their door. And so it simplifies the process. It does cost a little bit more because there's a shipping fee associated with compressed oxygen tanks. They have to ship it. We have to ship it a different way. But it helps those people who are looking for that turnkey solution where they just want everything to show up in a box ready to go. We have that ability. It's kind of cool. But I always like to give people the ability to like shop based upon price. And, if people are price sensitive, there's options out there for finding different oxygen sources.
Yeah. I mean, I've also got a Philips concentrator as well. I like a belt and braces.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I was going to say concentrators do work pretty well. They're a great alternative. My only caution on concentrators is make sure that you get one that has recently been tested. So like if you have an old concentrator, like I see some people buying concentrators that have been sitting in like a storage unit for like 7, 8, 9 years, they're not going to produce the good oxygen that you think they're going to produce. And so something just be aware of, make sure it's been recently like tested, making you have to make sure it's above that 90% threshold for it to be successful. Yeah. So if you get a concentrator that's producing under 90, you're not going to get the quality that you're shooting for.
Also, talking of quality, the quality of there's a lot of ozone generators now coming in from different countries, mainly China and things like that.
Yep.
That haven't got the right components in, and people look at an ozone concentrator and say, well, that might be £300 or $250 cheaper than that one. But can you explain the difference inside the quality of yours in comparison to some alternatives out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big difference is ozone compatibility. That's the key word right there. So it has to do with the construction of the cell and the transfer hose that allows the gas to escape out of the ozone generator. And so if we look at a lot of the components used, they are cheap plastics, cheap tubing, and they break down pretty rapidly. And the concerning part is as these tubings break down, they're releasing probably phthalates, other chemicals into the ozone gas stream, which is a concern. And so we are shooting for pure oxygen. And on the other side of that, we also are concerned about concentration. So like for ozone to be successful, like I previously said, dose is the medicine. So we want to make sure that our concentration is correct so we know what we're getting and so we know how to properly treat our condition. So like a lot of times when we do ozone therapy when we start off at home, we might start with a low concentration of roughly 10 to 20 gamma. And that's, there's a few, that's the easiest way to say it. It's basically a measurement of the ozone concentration. And if we are wildly off, and I'll be honest with you, you can't tell either. Like if you try to like smell the ozone from like 1 gamma to like 15 or 20 gamma, you're not going to notice a difference. No. And so really the only way to tell is through a device that tells you what that concentration is. And so that's why it's so important to have calibrated devices that give you a chart that show the ozone output so you can be successful with your treatment at home.
Having things on tap like ozone generators and being able to make several different, which we'll talk about in a second. We've already spoken about ozonated glycerin, but it's like having your own clinic at home. That's where I found when I was going through my health issues. And that's so beneficial. So
I totally agree. Like, I think like we have to kind of rethink how we do things nowadays. Like, but it's also biocompatible with the body where a lot of these other things are not. So when it comes to like respiratory issues or respiratory diseases or other types of things that we see popping up, it's one of the best tools in your toolbox that you have at home that you literally don't have to run out and buy refills or medicine because you're making it on site through a bottle of oxygen. And the cool thing with bottles of oxygen is they last forever.
Yes.
Like if you have like a big oxygen tank, that oxygen never goes bad. I mean, I've literally, I think I fill up my tank every couple of years and I use it pretty regularly.
Yeah, yeah. I use mine every day, 2 or 3 years at home, 10-litre tank. Like I say, they last forever.
Yeah, they last forever. So like, it's one of those things where you can literally have an ozone station in your home and you are essentially ready. There's so many cool treatments you can do. Like I do, like if my kids get pink eye, I ozonate some saline and I drop it in their eye and it's the fastest way to get rid of pink eye.
Yeah.
And, if they have a sore throat, they're going to start drinking ozonated water because that could turn into, you never know. It could be strep throat. If you let strep throat go too long, it turns into scarlet fever. So it gives our body that ability to develop immunity and also help with resistance as well. So I think there's a lot of amazing approaches with ozone, especially at home. And I encourage people to do it because it can save people's lives.
Yeah. I would say it got mine back on track. So the different types of treatments we can do at home. We talked about ozone water there. But in fact, no, let's step back. So if somebody came to you now and said, I haven't a clue about ozone, Promo Life, where do I start?
That's a great question. So what we typically recommend is there's a few treatments that we recommend people starting out with. We recommend drinking ozonated water, just like we talked about. We recommend ear insufflations, which is the process of adding a little bit of ozone to the ears. It can help with like sinus issues, head clarity, eye issues, stuff like that. And then the big thing that I would say this is probably the hardest one for people to get over is one of the best approaches is called rectal insufflation. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but I like to say it's basically a gas enema. So if anybody has done an enema with water, you're just doing it with gas instead. You're putting a small amount of gas up there. It's highly absorbable through the colon. It gets into the bloodstream incredibly fast and it'll disperse itself and it'll start doing what it's supposed to be doing very, very quickly. And you don't need a lot of ozone. It needs a very small amount. You can do it, once a day. You can do it a few times a week, but it's a really good option for like building up, getting that ozone systemically throughout the body so you can deal with those pathogens or something else that you're dealing with.
It's great for rebalancing the colon. That's what I find. And also getting rid of them parasites as well.
It is. And that actually lines into like a whole nother focus point on ozonated water and other things you can do with ozone at home. So like they find that I think they say like 80%, at least in America, 80% of Americans have some form of gum disease. And they say that 80% of systemic health issues start in the mouth. So we're talking like a bacterial infection or like a small localized infection in the mouth that could eventually gravitate into something much worse and much larger. So if we're addressing like if we're getting ozone into our system, we can fight off these infections, especially ozone water. And what it's doing is, and this relates to rectal insufflation as well, ozone it's pH neutral, at least in the mouth. And what it's really doing is it's resetting your terrain. So the question that I get more than anything is, well, does ozone kill the good bacteria? It will to a point, but it puts your body in the right terrain mode so your good bacteria can thrive and bounce back exponentially faster. So like a good example, when you add ozone to the mouth, it's pH neutral. And so it wipes out all the bad bacteria, but it wipes out some of the good. But all the issues in your mouth, like the cavities are formed because your mouth's acidic. Once you drop below a certain pH, that gives cavities the ability to form. If you can balance the pH of your mouth using ozone water, you've then created an environment that's non-conducive to form cavities. So you've essentially resetted your terrain. It allows your good oral microbiome to repopulate and keep your pH balanced long term. So it's really like if you're into like the terrain theory mode, ozone is really good at resetting your terrain to kind of balance out your body to get it where it should be so it functions more effectively.
Yeah, if there's my takeaway from using ozone is that it rebalances you, and that goes from water, ozone injections, ozone insufflations, and TEMPAS therapies, ozone TEMPAS therapies. The overriding thought, when people come for a TEMPAS therapy, I know we're talking something different there, but they feel rebalanced. That's their overriding feedback is the rebalance, and ozone does that. Definitely.
I totally agree. I think that's what it's really good at doing is it's good at resetting the body so your body has a better chance to rebalance itself and repopulate itself with, the good bacteria.
So if also one thing we haven't spoke about is ozone saunas. I mean, I got a lot of benefit from ozone saunas as well. I know. Do you sell ozone saunas still? or have you stopped doing
We
it?
do. Yeah. I think ozone saunas are great. Like it's a nice option for and I think it's a two-part solution with ozone saunas. First of all, the skin uptakes a lot of ozone as the pores open as you start to sweat. And then in addition, it drives your circulatory system. So you've increased your circulatory sweat system. You've created a whole nother path for ozone to absorb. So that ozone's now being delivered all throughout the body. I think it's very similar to rectal insufflation. For people who can't get over the fact of doing an insufflation, saunas might be a phenomenal solution for you. They're also really relaxing and also help the body detoxify. So there's definitely some added benefits to ozone saunas, and I love them. I think that like I do a lot of saunas during the wintertime, especially like I've got an infrared sauna, and it's one of those things where getting that sauna going, you get your blood flow going in the winter when you're cold, and man, it completely makes you feel so much better. And the biggest thing that I notice is like the next morning when you wake up, you just feel clean. You feel cleaned out, and your brain functions better. Everything feels like it's functioning more effectively.
I must add infrared sauna to that vitamin C and ozone. Infrared sauna. I'd be lost without my little wooden box behind me there.
Oh, nice.
I've had that for about 12 years. No, probably longer. 15 years we've had it. We've been using it, something like that. Yeah, that's a great bit of equipment.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think saunas are awesome, and you know and we have a lot of people who just do saunas, but they'll do the insufflations separately.
Mhm.
Like another option is you can do an insufflation and then get in the sauna, and that's going to drive your circulatory system, so it's going to provide similar benefits. So, but I think the body just has to sweat, like there's people that I know who can't sweat, and I think that's something that we've got to look at because you could have a detox pathway issue going on, and or it could be like a thyroid issue. But really, I think for people to stay healthy, we've got to get that sweating back. We've got to be able to sweat effectively because it's just our natural way to clean out our system.
It is. So you can help people through the process. I know it sounds a long way away, the States where you are, but it's not a slow process getting the equipment over here, is it?
Surprisingly, it's pretty quick. Like shipping, it really isn't too bad. Surprisingly, we lift everything as water purification equipment, so it gets through the border really easily. And I mean, overall, I mean, you're talking like from time of order placed, you're talking roughly probably like 5 to 7 days, honestly, because it's pretty quick. As long as there's no holdups with customs. I know there's obviously there's been a few changes in the world the past year. That's caused I think it causes more adaptation. So it causes these shipping companies to figure out how to process and do it differently. So, but overall, the time frame really isn't that bad. And then what we offer all of our customers is we offer free lifetime support. So, you can schedule calls with us with one of our trained sales or trained customer service reps who knows Ozone. They can walk you through all the equipment details, how to do everything. And so that's free of charge. And like, I think that's super important because I see so many people trying to like piecemeal ozone equipment together, and it ends up costing them more money in the long run. Where if you get a dedicated system that's set up for you, that's complete, you have everything you need, and you can really maintain that system more effectively, and you know how it should operate. Like there's so many little things that people don't realize that have to be accounted for, that when you buy it individually, you may miss steps, and it may not be as successful as you want.
And also, you're going to add different treatments, aren't you? You might start off just doing insufflations, and so you'll learn about that yourself, like we all had to do. And then you might want to do ozonated waters. You might not buy everything at once, so you might,
Yeah.
you might buy the glassware separately.
Yeah, there's so many things you can do. Like you can do sinus insufflations where you shoot ozone up your nose. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah,
Drink ozonated water. Women can do vaginal insufflations. That's amazing for women.
yeah.
I've seen just hands down some of the best results when women do that. We're talking like women who have irregular periods or heavy periods. Like it literally regulates them so quickly.
Mhm.
Great for endometriosis issues. just like, I mean, we're talking like within 3 weeks, they notice a difference.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, it blows my mind how fast it works. And then not to mention saunas, you can really start getting pretty fun with things. Like I've ozonated saline. I do like nebulizing. I nebulize ozonated saline. I put ozone drops in my eyes. You can treat cuts, wounds. You can do so many different things with ozone.
So where do you stand on this terrain theory that viruses don't exist? You'll have heard all this stuff.
It's okay. This is my approach for terrain theory. I'm very, very, I think there's a lot to it. I think there's a lot of good information. But one of the arguments that I have, because I've had a lot of conversations with people who believe in terrain theory, one of the conversations that I have with them is, hey, you have to start slow. Like they come from the approach of like, I'm right and they're wrong, and they might be correct, but you can't take something that somebody's believed for the 30 plus years or 40 years, however long they've been alive, and then make them flip their brain overnight. Okay.
Yeah.
Some people it works, some people it doesn't. I think for me, I can definitely get behind the idea of viruses are more of a shedding or the antibodies are being produced. That's how they detect them. I can really get behind that.
Yeah.
And I think there's honestly a lot of research and a lot of information about that. And I can totally get on board with that with terrain theory. I think the harder part for me is the bacterial side. That's a little bit harder for me to get on board, but I really feel that like when it comes to the terrain in the body, ozone is like if we think about it, like I think I want to use this example. So in my opinion, everybody, at least in the United States, or the majority of people in the United States, probably have Lyme disease. Okay. So they probably have the Lyme bacteria in their system, but you have X amount of people who actually get sick, and then a whole bunch of people who have no ill effects whatsoever. And it takes an event. A lot of times it takes an event such as a sickness, a mold exposure, a car accident, an emotional event for that to resurface, for that to come about and cause that person to become sick. And so I really look at our bodies as more of like a terrain. And so we have to keep our terrain at the appropriate level, because we risk our bodies going deteriorating or going downhill if we become too affected. And so I think ozone, regardless if we believe in viruses or bacteria, I think that needs to be put aside. It does keep our terrain on point, so we don't experience these other sicknesses down the road.
And that's why I say to people, it's irrelevant what you believe in. It's what makes you feel better. So if you're ill and you don't believe that bacteria has caused it or a virus, but it makes you better, it doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant.
It doesn't. I agree.
And also, I would say that terrain theory and germ theory are theories. So that means that nobody still knows what on earth they are.
That is a good point.
Yeah. And also, if you throw, going back to Lyme disease, if you throw bioweaponization into the pot, then a bacteria probably isn't what a bacteria was 150 years ago, because it's been changed somewhere and possibly sent out there into the population via whatever, food, water, vaccines, whatever it might be in. And now it's different. It all bets are off then, as far as I'm concerned, because it's been weaponized.
That's completely correct. You are completely correct about that. So,
and also on another note, sorry to go off on my little rant, but a virus might be not what we think it is. It might well be a lie, or it might be true, but that it could be just a weaponization of something.
Well,
poison.
I'm a big believer of like, I feel like there is and I think there's a lot of evidence to show this as well. Like, I'm a big believer in like frequencies. Okay. So like it's all about the frequency of our body. Like think about think about people's pets. Like a lot of people say that, like I've talked to tons of vets, and it's like, why do a lot of these people and pets have the same conditions? And I know you can make the argument like, well, they live a similar lifestyle, they probably have similar habits and all that kind of stuff. So you can make that argument, but in reality, it's like it's almost like they spend so much time together that they take on part of each other, and so they experience the same emotions, the same physical issues, and I think the only way to describe that is like via frequency transfer, and
Yeah.
there's got to be something to that. And like, I mean, if you think about like being around people who are like, okay, a good example is I talk to a lot of people all the time, every day, and you can tell which ones are sick because of the energy that they give off.
Yeah.
And so like I'm a big believer like when somebody wants to like if somebody has a condition and they want to, go get better, they want to work on, addressing that condition. I'm a believer like, okay, great. You need to obviously go to a specialist to deal with it. But we also need to focus on the spiritual or the emotional side of that because there's a reason why this happened in the first place. And so too many health practitioners aren't focusing on that. I think that's something that's vastly overlooked that has to be addressed.
It's because we're in a here's a pill society, aren't we? This will cure everything,
Yeah.
and there is always more to it. Well, even with my with Lyme disease that I went through a spiritual change as well. There were positives to having Lyme disease, as much as I hate to admit.
Okay, that's interesting.
In a way that I learned a lot. I was for some reason it sped my learning up because I were interested in learning all of a sudden about health, for instance.
Yeah, you have a condition and you have to figure it out. And so like your number one job is like if you have a family is to be well for your family.
That's what I
And
thought. Yeah.
like that's my priority. That's like your priority. And so and like I also want to kind of mention what I find interesting with a lot of individuals is like we do live in this society that's a lot more stressful than it used to be. And so what's happening is it's causing everybody's cortisol levels to spike. And when your cortisol levels continuously spike day after day, it I hate to say it, it's just a matter of time before you're going to get sick.
Yes.
And we have to like recognize this stuff. And I know it's hard to, if you're barely scraping by and you have to have this job, I get it. It's hard, but we have to learn how to address these cortisol spikes. And maybe there's other ways to deal with it, like emotionally, where you still can work that job or as far as how you handle things. But like, we really do have to focus on a lot of that stuff that's making us sick.
Yeah. And again, we'll come full circle back. Having an ozone generator at home to make all these different little treatment sessions you can have at home on a daily basis is one way of reducing that stress level. It's one thing.
It is.
And I mean, the barriers are always for treatments. One of them's cost and time and effort that you've got to put in. The cost is always a barrier, but I explained this to my brother, actually, who likes his red wine. And he said, it's all right for you. You can afford an ozone generator. And I said, well, hang on a minute. How much red wine do you and your wife drink on an annual basis? And we totted it all up, and it was nowhere near the cost of what it had set to set up an little ozone corner, if you like, in his house. And he went, oh, well, you're always right. You know what it's like with your brothers and sisters and what have you. And I was just making a point that you probably can afford it, but you might have to make some kind of sacrifice, if you like, in your life. But once you've bought it, that's it for years. You've got it.
That's
more
it.
or less,
Yeah.
more or less ever, I would say, but certainly a decade anyway.
Well, and I think it also boils down to productivity. Like a good example is like if you've got an underlying infection that you're not addressing, it's just going to slowly progress and get worse, and then your productivity drops. Okay, like you can't do as many things at home. You have to hire somebody to do something because you physically can't do it. Where if we start incorporating ozone, we can really manage these levels in our body. We'll feel better. We'll be more productive. And anytime you're more productive, you are going to, in my opinion, you're going to save money. Okay. That's just how it works for me. Because if we look at like, I mean, a little bit different over there in the UK, but for the United States, I mean, our healthcare costs are just ridiculous. And so we have to figure out ways to minimize doctor's visits because, I mean, anytime I go to the doctor, even though I have insurance, I still get a bill.
Mm. Yeah. And also, going back to family, I always think as well, educating yourself on different things that you can do, you can then pass that on to the next generation, if you like. And the stress that it causes everybody when they see their young one ill with something, or the grandson or granddaughter ill with something. But you've got the power to actually help people within your family get better, and you can see it before your eyes. Actually, for instance, I remember my son had earache, and I was squirting ozone into his ear very slowly with a syringe, and it sorted his earache out. Just things like that distress you as a parent.
Oh yeah, like I think it gives you a tool that most people don't have access to, and in reality, I love using this example. Like I was doing a summit last year, and we were focusing on menopause, and the main goal was reduce the amount of antibiotics that these women have to take. And so we were focusing on ozone being used, vaginally, and also suppositories vaginally, because what's happening once you hit that age, you get a lot of a lot of additional bacterial infections, and the standard of care treatment is to go to the doctor, get an antibiotic. Sure, you might be okay for a few times, but as you keep taking those antibiotics, it's going to eventually just wreck your gut, and then when your gut's wrecked, you're going to get sick more often. So like really, we're putting a little bit of power back into our hand, just like what you said with the family. And if we can treat some of these things without having to go to the doctor, because the standard of care is literally just putting people on antibiotics. And we know, sure, our body can tolerate that, but over time, it's going to negatively affect our health. And so by putting that in our own power, we can probably vastly reduce the amount of antibiotics that people take, which is good for the world and also good for our family.
Yeah. And I suppose if there's a takeaway, owning this type of equipment actually gives you that power that you were saying.
Oh yeah, it does. It's literally a tool at home where you have the ability to focus on bacterial, viral, other issues that are completely hitting us day after day, and you have something that can address that. And it's literally pennies on the dollar to operate once you have the stuff. And in my opinion, I think everybody should have a home ozone system. I work with a lot of practitioners and dentists. They're literally telling all their patients, you have to do this at home because your treatments in my office will be more effective. And I think it's an amazing approach. I love it. And so you're seeing it grow because it does work. And ozone is not going away. We're seeing tons of clinics pop up offering it, and it's here to stay. It's safe, and it's really going to make people feel better in the long run.
Also, even when you're making ozone water, not just for drinking, but you can wash your vegetables with it. You can wash fruit with it. So there's all of the uses. It destroys all the toxicity on your vegetables. Gets rid of all once you've washed them, doesn't it? It breaks down all the heavy metals and things like that.
Yeah, for anybody not convinced on ozone, if you drink bottled water, it's all purified with ozone. They do a lot of like ozone cleaning with like meats and fish and vegetables. It increases the lifespan of the vegetable because it reduces a lot of that bacteria on it. They use ozone in hot tubs, pools. It's just a very widely used substance because it's so effective, and it turns back into oxygen. That's all it does. Yeah. So it doesn't leave any chemical residue behind.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to cover before we call it a day, and I'll let you get on with your day?
Oh, I think we covered a lot, and I just want to stress, like, for people looking to get into ozone, it might seem overwhelming at first, but if you take our approach, it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. And if you look at the videos, if you go with us, we have the tools there to be successful.
Yeah, I'll put all the links in the notes and the description and what have you back to your company, Promo Life, and well, there you go. There's some more information. Well, what's good about these podcasts is that we're giving people the ability to sort of think for yourself. We've handed over our jurisdiction for ourselves to other people, haven't we, over the years? And going back, and we've forgotten what it's like to be able to look after ourselves. And I was one of them people. I'm not being arrogant when I'm saying that,
Yeah, it's super important, like to be more in control of ourselves. And I think anytime we rely on assistance, and sure that there's always going to be a case where we have to, but like, just remember, if you're relying on assistance, somebody else is also relying on assistance, and then you're essentially in line. Okay. So if you're willing to wait, great. But if you want to take things a little bit faster, you may have to do it yourself.
And also, you're relying on Big Pharma then, and
Yes,
we know
you
where
are.
that road leads to.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks, Tobias.
Thanks so much, Don. I appreciate it. Okay.
Welcome to the Feelgood Factor podcast. Now please welcome your host, Dom Watterson.